What is up, everybody? My name is Logan Strom. Welcome to CTF Strom Talks Football. Today I'm going to be giving you guys my NFL Wildcard Reactions. There's a ton I want to talk about here, so let's not waste any more time. Don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of my videos whenever I post. Well, out of the way, let's get started. Alright, so the first wildcard game we were introduced with was the Chargers at the Texans, and wow, what did this game shock me. This game was nothing like I pictured, so to make this more sense, I'm going to talk about the Texans first, even though they won. Usually I talk about the winning team after. We're going to talk about the Texans first, because it'll make more sense. So looking at the Texans here, CJ Stroud, he didn't play his best game at all. The whole offense didn't, but he was fine. 22 for 33, 282 yards, a touchdown and a pick. Like, he wasn't bad. And then looking at rushing here, Joe Mixon really carried this offense once again. 25 carries for 106 yards and a touchdown. Like, that's really good, even though most of it was towards the end of the game. And then when you look at receiving, Nico Collins absolutely carried with 7 receptions for 122 yards and a touchdown. Like, no one was even close. And then this is where it really starts getting interesting, the defense. The defense made almost every single play for the Texans here. Looking at, like, the defense, Eric Murray, 1 interception. Derek Stingley, absolute stud. The best defensive player out of the whole day for Houston. 2 interceptions. Like, he was an absolute beast. And then Alshire, even though I don't think he should be playing, like, he made some good plays. And then Kamari Lassiter, please correct me if I pronounced that wrong, had a pick 6. Like, there's tons of great plays from Houston's defense all game. Like, they carried the Texans this week to a win. Now, this is the part I wanted to get to, like, after, like, the Chargers. Like, why did the Chargers shit the bed so badly? Well, look at Justin Herbert's stats. 14 for 32, missed tons of passes. 242 yards, 1 touchdown, 4 goddamn interceptions. That is the worst he's ever played in his career, and that's gonna haunt him for the rest of the career. Like, that's bad. And then you can look at the rest of the stats here, like rushing, absolutely horrible. And then you look at receiving. Even though the Chargers had a very bad game and they just looked completely ugly this game, I will give Lab McConkey a lot of credit because he balled the F out, man. 9 receptions for 197 yards and a touchdown. Without him, the Chargers probably wouldn't have scored any points. They probably only had like 6 points because of Digger, the kicker. Like, it was just ugly. Obviously, the Chargers defense didn't do anything. Like, other than Dang Leonard and Derwin James did play a great game. I'll give him credit too. But, man, this game was just ugly. Like, this whole game was ugly. Like, great job by Houston. They, like, really proved me wrong. And hopefully they play well against the Chiefs. If they somehow beat the Chiefs, I would ride or die with them, like, next season. Like, no joke. Even though it's never going to happen. But, yeah, good game by Houston. And Chargers, yeah, that was embarrassing. Alright, the next game we were introduced with was the Steelers at the Ravens. And this is a game where you say that one team was just completely outmatched by the other. Like, the Ravens were just far better of a team, and the Steelers just were outmatched the entire game. Now, looking at the Steelers here, Russell Wilson really tried to give as much as what was given. 20 for 29, 270 yards, 2 touchdowns. He didn't play that bad of a game. It's just the offense just could not get rolling. Najee Harris was absolutely atrocious. Like, the whole rushing was, but holy shit, 6 carries for 17 yards. Like, that's the worst I've ever seen him. That's bad. And then when you look at receiving, George Pickens had 5 receptions for 87 yards and a touchdown, as well as Van Jefferson having a touchdown. Like, I had it with George Pickens, dude. He has such an ego, and he's so immature, and he's so overrated. Like, I've never disliked the receiver more on the Steelers, and that says a lot because Antonio Brown was used to be on the Steelers. And then looking at the Steelers defense, I was expecting them to make some plays, and they really didn't. Like, they just got outclassed the entire game, and all their skill players, other than Minkah Fitzpatrick making a couple plays, other than him getting absolutely stiff-armed, like the Steelers defense did not do anything. Like, they were embarrassing. Like, the entire Steelers team this week was embarrassing. Now, when you look at the Ravens here, look at Lamar here. He didn't throw for that much. Like, he didn't have to. Like, the run game was just going absolutely crazy. Like, 16 for 21, 175 yards, 2 touchdowns. Like, that's good, but he didn't have to throw for that much. The running game was where it really peaked. Like, look at Derrick Henry. 26 carries for 186 yards and 2 touchdowns. Like, that's amazing. While you got Lamar down there with 15 carries for 81 yards. Like, they hardly had to pass. Like, running was just getting the job done the whole time. And then when Lamar did have to throw, like, he was surgical. Like, even though the receiving yards aren't that much, like, he was throwing to guys like he was throwing to everyone. Like almost every receiver on this team had a purpose in this game. Isaiah Likely ended up getting the most yards, and Rashad Bateman and Justice Hill ended up getting the touchdowns. But everyone was involved, which is like something you would love to see as a Ravens fan. And then looking at the Ravens defense, they were amazing. Like Matabuke, please correct me if I said that wrong. Like I probably pronounced that wrong, but he was great. He had 2 sacks. Michael Pierce had a sack. Owe had a sack. Like they were all making plays. Like it was great. It was a great game by the Ravens. So yeah, you better hope the Ravens bring it next week for the divisional round and hopefully play like this against Buffalo, because that's probably going to be their toughest opponent yet, unless they play the Chiefs in the AFC Championship. But yeah, that's going to be a great game, and man, that's going to be a really good one. All right, so the next one we've got is the Broncos at the Bills, and yeah, the Broncos started off hot with a touchdown, but then ever since, like, they could not do anything else. Like, they were outclassed the rest of the game. Now, looking at the Broncos here, Bo Nix, even though he didn't, like, throw the best he could, like, he wasn't bad. 13 for 22, 144 yards, a touchdown. He didn't throw a single turnover, which is great. Rushing was absolutely terrible. Receiving, other than Cortland Sutton and Troy Franklin, did not do much. Troy Franklin had a touchdown. That's good. But other than that, receiving was pretty dull. And then looking at the defense, like DJ Jones had a sack, Zach Allen had a sack, but other than that, like the Broncos defense just could not do much. I will say, like, just not look at Marvin Mims' stats here with receiving. Him on special teams, like, he was really good. Like, he carried with special teams. That's one thing I will say. Now, when you look at the Bills, Josh Allen played a general Josh Allen game, 20 for 26, 272 yards, 2 touchdowns, not a single turnover. He was great. Looking at the rushing, James Cook was also great with 23 carries for 120 yards and a touchdown. And then when you look at receiving, Curtis Samuel led with 3 receptions for 68 yards and a touchdown, as well as Ty Johnson also having a touchdown. Like, the receiving was pretty good. Now, when you look at the defense here, Matt Milano had a sack, Greg Rossonado had a sack, like, and they were all playing pretty good. DeMar Hamlin almost had a game-ending pick at the end, but they called it back. Look, it did hit the ground, but at the same time, you're like, come on, man. Like, that would have been a perfect ending. But still, really great game by the Bills defense. And overall, the Bills played a great game, and this is what was expected to happen, and they got the job done. So now they play the Ravens next week. That's going to be their toughest game yet, probably. Yeesh. Next game we got was the Packers at the Eagles, and this game was just ugly, dude. Like, this game was not fun to watch. Both teams did not look that great. The Packers looked even worse, but the Eagles got the job done. Looking at the Packers here, dude, Jordan Love was absolutely atrocious. 20 for 33, 202 yards, no touchdowns, 3 picks. This is probably his worst game he's ever played as well, just like Justin Herbert. Looking at the rushing, Josh Jacobs did as much as he could. He had a really great season. 18 carries for 81 yards and a touchdown. Like, he played such a great season. Like, no disrespect on him. He was great. And then when you look at the receiving, like, it was just dull. Especially because Jordan Love just could not, like, hit water if it fell out of a boat. Like, dude, like, he was just not good. Jaden Reed, I will say, was extremely overrated this year. He had a really bad season compared to last year. Tucker Kraft did as much as he could, but he hardly got the ball because Jordan Love, again, could not hit water if it fell out of a boat for some reason in this game. But yeah, the receiving as a whole was trash. And then when you look at the defense, again, it was trash. Like, they couldn't do anything. Like, they couldn't make any plays. Like, the Eagles just ran all over them all game long. Now, when you look at the Eagles here, Jalen Hurts, again, he didn't have to throw for that much, but he did all right. 13 for 21, 131 yards, 2 touchdowns, no turnovers. Saquon was absolutely elite. 25 carries for 119 yards. Didn't get a touchdown, but he carried the Eagles' offense. And then when you look at receiving, Devontae Smith led with 4 receptions for 55 yards. Dallas Goedert had an amazing receiving touchdown, as well as Jahan Dotson finally getting some credit, because I feel like him getting traded to the Commanders, from the Commanders to the Eagles was probably one of the worst moves in the offseason, but he got a touchdown. Shocking to see A.J. Brown only get held to 1 reception. Like, that's kind of crazy to see. Hopefully he does better next week, but yeah, still good. And then when you look at the Eagles' defense, man, they played a hell of a game. Like, sacks all over the board. Darius Slay got a pick. Quinion Mitchell got a pick. He's been really underrated this season. Zach Bond got a pick. Like, it was all great stuff to see from an Eagles fan perspective. Like, tons of great plays by the Eagles. So yeah, this was probably the worst game out of all the playoff games. Like, spoiler alert for the other two coming up, but this was probably the worst game by far. And yeah, like Eagles looked like shit. The Packers looked like even more shit, but the Eagles looked a little better. So, yep, good game. Next game we got was the Commanders at the Bucks, and this was easily the best playoff game out of the whole playoff weekend. Like, both teams played extremely well. Both made some crucial mistakes, but the Commanders just ended up as the better team at the end. This was a great game to watch. At Tampa Bay here, Baker Mayfield played an okay game. 15 for 18, 185 yards, 2 touchdowns, didn't throw a single turnover. He didn't throw for that much, but he didn't throw a single turnover, which is great to see. Looking at rushing, Bucky Irving, once again being really good. 17 carries for 77 yards. He was really good. And then when you look at receiving, Mike Evans carried with 7 receptions for 92 yards and a touchdown, as well as Bucky Irving having a receiving touchdown. Like, it was pretty quiet, but it's also been good. And then when you look at the Bucs defense, Levante David had a sack, but other than that, like, the Bucs defense really couldn't make any plays just because it was just back and forth the whole time. One thing I will say about Tampa is how bad their clock management was at the end. Like, I don't know what Todd Bowles was doing. Like, he single-handedly, like, cost the Bucs the game almost. Like, that was some ugly clock management at the end. Like, that was bad. Now, looking at the Commanders here, Jaden Daniels had himself a great game. 24 for 35, 268 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Looking at the rushing, Jaden Daniels also led with 13 carries for 36 yards. Other than that, rushing was really bad, but that's also because the Bucs defense have such a great rushing defense. Like, that's been like their whole thing all season, so really no shock there. And then when you look at receiving, Terry McLaurin carried with 7 receptions for 89 yards and a touchdown, as well as De'Ami Brown with 5 receptions for 89 yards and a touchdown. Like, both of these receivers were really good in this game. And then when you look at the defense, they were able to make a couple plays, but again, just like the Bucs defense, it was just back and forth the whole time. Like, there was like nothing like notable here other than a couple fumble recoveries. So yeah, this was easily the best playoff game of the whole playoff weekend, and then it ended with a doink field goal. I forgot to mention that. The Commanders lined up for the game-winning field goal. It doinked, but it doinked in. That's how they won. That was their first playoff win since 2005. That's how they did it. Insane game, great game by the Commanders. I will be cheering for them for here on out. And finally, the last playoff game we had was the Vikings at the Rams. Before we get into this game, to anybody that lost their homes in Southern California, to anybody that lives in Southern California, or to anybody that got injured from the wildfires from Southern California, we're here for you. We hope you get back on your feet. We'll get through this together. We hope you guys recover nice and fine. We're all here for you. We'll get through this together. Hey, this game had to be in Arizona because of the whole Southern California wildfire aspect, because the smoke would just be way too much for everybody, even though it's in a dome. So yeah, this was a lot of change for LA for this game. They couldn't play in their home stadium. Obviously, they had a big ceremony at the start to like salute the people that are fighting in the fires, the people that lost their homes. Like, it was all great stuff. But I was thinking in my head, this was the moment the Vikings lost the game. Like, I knew the Rams were going to play with a lot of heart, and they did. Looking at the Rams, let's get to the Rams first. Looking at the Rams here, Matthew Stafford played himself a hell of a game. 19 for 27, 209 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Like, he didn't throw a single turnover. He was really good. Looking at the rushing, Kyren Williams played himself a pretty good game. 16 carries for 76 yards. And then looking at receiving, a returning Tyler Higbee ended up leading receiving with 5 receptions for 58 yards. But Kyren Williams and Davis Allen both got receiving touchdowns. Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua were surprisingly quiet, but honestly, they were able to find success, so it's not too much of a hard on. And looking at the defense here, they played pretty good. They got sacks all over the board. Byron Young, Kareem Curl, like, my bad, not that one. Witherspoon. Gallimore. Kobe Turner had 2 sacks. Like, they were all over the board. Jarrett Verse had a fumble recovery touchdown. Like, all these players had great games. Like, the whole Rams defense really came alive in this game. Now, this is where it starts getting interesting. Looking at the Vikings, this is one thing I have to say about Sam Darnold. This season, Sam Darnold has definitely improved as a quarterback and as a player. No debate on that. Nobody can argue against that. But when you put the brightest lights on this dude, he will collapse. Like, when you put the brightest lights on this guy, he will not perform to the expectations you want him to. And these last 2 games have done nothing but prove that. Like, Sam Darnold was pretty bad. 25 for 40, 245 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. He could not hit water if it fell out of a boat last night. Like, he just did not play well. Looking at rushing, it was absolutely terrible. And then looking at receiving, T.J. Hawkinson and Justin Jefferson did as much as they could, but Sam Darnold just could not get them the ball. T.J. Hawkinson did end up getting a touchdown, but like they just could not get anything done. And then looking at the defense, they did all they could. Like, they made the plays they needed at certain times to try to get the Vikings to come back, but the offense just never did anything with them. Like, the offense just could not like make anything happen. Like, it was disappointing to watch. So yeah, very good game by the Rams, and I'm happy they won, honestly. But man, it just sucks to see for the Vikings, because this is the second like season this decade that they've had a really good record, but they've lost in the wild card round. Like, and this is going to be an off season full of questions they need to answer. Like, what do you do with Sam Darnold? Do you keep him? Do you trade him to another team? You've got J.J. McCarthy ready to play. Like, what do you guys do? Like, I will be very interested to see what they're going to do. And there you guys have it. Those were my NFL Wildcard reactions. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know down in the comments on how you reacted to these games. And also, again, if you guys live in LA, don't lose hope. We're here for you. You'll get back on your feet. Anyway, that's where I'm going to be done for the day. Don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, turn on notification bells so you don't miss any of my videos whenever I post. I'm Logan Sharon. I'll see you next time.